Now at 5, a proposal would change the operation of lights on wind turbines in Kansas.
The U.S. and other Western allies continue to look for ways to squeeze the Russian economy in response to the war in Ukraine. I'm Skyler Henry at the White House with the latest proposals and more from the ground in Ukraine.
And we check out mental health services coming to pharmacy chains.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Kansas lawmakers will hear a bill concerning wind turbines this week that could greatly impact residents of rural southeast Kansas. This is KOAM News at 5. The Senate bill would prohibit new wind turbines unless they're equipped with a light reduction technology. That means the lights would turn on only when an aircraft is near. Bill sponsor Senator Mike Thompson says he's seen these lights negatively impact residents of rural areas.
So it can set off certain sectors and turn on those lights while a plane is in the air so that it doesn't endanger the aircraft. And then as soon as the aircraft is out of range, it shuts those lights back off. Kind of like the old clap on, clap off thing, you know.
We're going to hear from a southeast Kansas resident living near wind turbines tonight at 6. Cherokee County residents can tell the Board of County Commissioners how they feel about allowing industrial turbines in the county this evening. Public meeting on that issue begins at 6 p.m. at the Cherokee County Courthouse in Columbus. Authorities released the name of a Joplin man killed in a crash yesterday afternoon. Investigators say 25-year-old Jonathan Beavers was driving a car that crossed the center line and hit an oncoming car on Coyote Drive in southwest Joplin. Beavers died at the scene. 2 Seneca residents, a woman and a teenage girl, were in the other car. The woman's injuries were listed as serious. The teen's injuries were moderate. Kind of a dreary day out there. Checking in with Nick Kelly.
But at least we tried to drier as we got the new work week and school week underway, Dow. But like you said, all the cloud cover that we're still seeing plenty of from 7th and Rangeline really kept temperatures down for today, certainly with temperatures mainly in the 30s all across the board. But again, despite the cloud cover, we are dry on the radar network. A nice change of pace after the weekend rain and certainly all the rain and storms that we had yesterday. Speaking of, that storm system is well to the east of us now, and we actually have an area of high pressure building in over southwestern Kansas. It's not going to completely scrub out the cloud cover, but it is going to keep us dry as we go through the rest of the evening and nighttime ahead of us. On the other side, it's going to keep us cold. We're in the lower to middle 30s right now. At least not too much of a drop off of temperatures tonight because of the cloud cover. We'll go from the mid 30s to 28 by midnight, and most of us mid to upper 20s later on tonight. Dow, we'll see how the rest of the week fares, including our next chance for rain and maybe snow coming up in a bit.
See you then. President Biden held a video conference with European allies for about an hour and 20 minutes today as his administration considers reversing course on banning Russian oil imports. The United Nations says the invasion of Ukraine is creating the largest growing refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. Reporter Skyler Henry has more from the White House.
In the 12 days since Russia invaded Ukraine, oil prices have skyrocketed to their highest levels in more than a decade. Now the Biden administration is considering a ban on Russian energy imports, while also hoping to lessen the pain for Americans at the pump.
No decision has been made at this point. What the president is most focused on is ensuring we are continuing to take steps to deliver punishing economic consequences on Putin.
President Biden discussed Ukraine in a video conference with the leaders of France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, as some European allies also look for ways to cut consumption of Russian oil.
You can't simply close down use of oil and gas overnight, even from Russia.
Ukrainian negotiators say a third round of talks with the Russians have yielded some progress on civilian evacuations. So far, failed ceasefire attempts have upset efforts to create safe corridors. The United Nations says more than 1.7 million people have fled Ukraine since the invasion began. The Biden administration is in discussions with allies on how to backfill countries like Poland, should Poland fulfill Ukraine's request for more fighter jets.
There are a number of challenging practical questions, including how the planes would actually be transferred from Poland to Ukraine.
The Pentagon has ordered 500 more U.S. troops to Europe to bolster NATO's eastern flank, where Secretary of State Antony Blinken is visiting allies.
Our message to Russia, to President Putin, end the war. End it now.
Blinken says there have been no decisions on keeping U.S. forces in the region permanently. Skyler Henry, CBS News, the White House.
This evening, members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee are receiving a closed-door briefing on the situation in Ukraine from State Department officials. Later this week, Congress is expected to take up the Biden administration's request for $10 billion in additional humanitarian and military aid for Ukraine. A ribbon cutting today marked the completion of a renovation of the original Broadway entrance to Pitt State's Russ Hall. The original entrance was built back in 1940. This renovation was funded with gifts from senior classes of 2000 and 2003 through 2008. The opening today coincides with the university's annual Apple Day celebration. A number of other events celebrate Apple Day at Pitt State, including the traditional Apple Dessert Contest. Apple Day is the university's longest-running tradition. It dates to 1907, when the university founder and the Pittsburgh president were fined a barrel of apples for sitting in a legislator's seat while lobbying for the school. Up next, news services that could be just around the block.
The therapist is now in by the pharmacy. I'm Bradley Blackburn with why CVS and other big chains are now offering mental health care inside their stores.
And what your height might indicate about your risk for colorectal cancer. Those stories next in Health Watch.
Thank you.
Topping today's Health Watch, a new study examines the links between height and the risk of colorectal cancer. The study from Johns Hopkins Medicine Research says tall people might have a greater risk of developing colorectal cancer or malignant colon polyps and should possibly be screened more often for them. Scientists looked at 47 international studies covering more than 200,000 colorectal patients and more than 1,400 colonoscopy cases. Taller people had almost 25% more risk for colorectal cancer. They say taller people may have more mutation possibilities in organs due to taller size. Research from the American Chemical Society reveals consumption of cocoa has little impact alleviating exercise-related digestive distress like nausea or diarrhea. Scientists studied 54 fit male athletes for 10 weeks following an intensive workout program. The participants replaced their usual diets with cocoa or starch powder. The analysis found their symptoms did not significantly improve or stop at the end. However, researchers said further studies are needed to see the effects of cocoa on women. It's been a stressful couple of years for an awful lot of Americans, and that has people thinking more about their mental health and looking for help. Well, now some big chains are offering therapy in a place that might surprise you. Bradley Blackburn reports.
Shakira Teagle faced a fork in the road a few months ago. The 29-year-old newlywed felt real stress from the pandemic and decided she needed help.
It's not always easy to, just talk to the ones around you because we're all kind of like going through the same thing.
She started researching therapy options, but never expected to find it here, inside her local pharmacy.
Were you surprised to find this at CVS?
Yes, for sure. You walk into CVS and get some medicine, some soap, some toothpaste. You never think, hey, let me walk to the back and go schedule a therapy session.
CVS has hired licensed therapists like Luz Gomez Caceres in dozens of stores. She says in this setting, she's able to reach patients who might not feel comfortable in a traditional office.
It's the same service that you get. The difference is that it feels very casual because you're coming through the store.
4 in 10 Americans report symptoms of anxiety or depression, up 30% from before the pandemic. Now more than ever, therapy is in demand. Online therapy has boomed. And like CVS, Walmart, Rite Aid, and Walgreens are all piloting mental health services in stores.
CVS says these clinics make mental health care much more accessible. Patients can just walk in and wait for an appointment, and stores have expanded hours to nights and weekends.
Teagle says she had trouble making an appointment elsewhere.
Coming here, I've learned ways to kind of, talk myself through situations and talk things out.
Finding the right person to talk to in a convenient place could make all the difference. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania.
Surveys show people often have trouble finding a therapist who accepts insurance, but CVS and those other big chains work with many insurance plans. And that is a look at today's health news. A little bit later, how the war in Ukraine could impact the global economy.
Plus, we have up and down temperatures in the forecast, including another shot for rain and even snow later on. Forecast next.
We only have 4.
Let's go places.
The cloud cover was stubborn to let go, and that definitely had an impact on temperatures, even though we kept things pretty dry, as advertised at least, throughout the course of the start of the new work week and the school week as well. Looking quiet from Indigo Sky with our live shot outside of Seneca, Missouri. But again, the cloud cover on the backside of the storm system, it did not get the hint. It is still so stubborn to clear out. So remember yesterday, the best we could do with all the clouds and rain and the storms was lower in the middle 40s throughout the area. We dropped back in the upper 20s this morning. We couldn't even get out of the 30s today. Again, it is all because after we dealt with the rain, the thunderstorms, thankfully none of the severe weather, and maybe a few random snow flurries very early this morning, we were dry throughout the day. But again, if we got that cloud cover in place, it's always going to have the ultimate say on how temperatures play out. Fortunately, we are going to warm up over the next few days before our next storm system rolls on in. And until it rolls on in, we're going to keep this view of the radar network dry so that we can salvage that for the next few days. 7th range line, traffic bustling along, especially the northbound traffic from the live view there. But 33 in Joplin, it is cold outside for sure with the northwest wind at 8, making it feel like 26 outside. And as far as the rest of the area is concerned, we're mainly in the lower to middle 30s, but for the few of you that did manage to see some clearing skies, we're at 41 in Sedan, 39 in Fredonia, and 37 over in Chanute. But factor in the breeze, it all feels like we're either in the mid-20s to about the lower 30s all across the board. As long as the cloud cover is going to be the main theme to the forecast tonight, we're not going to see a big drop in temperatures from the lower to middle 30s now and 6 o'clock to about the upper 20s by midnight, mainly mid to upper 20s for the entire area going into Tuesday morning. And just as we were getting rid of the cloud cover from the last storm system, we've got more clouds streaming in from the south, even though high pressure is building across the western parts of Kansas. At least this is going to keep us dry before we deal with this cold front, our next frontal system, by about Thursday and certainly Friday. In the short term, though, this upper level wave coming out of Colorado, that's what's going to keep the cloud cover in play as we go through tomorrow, even though we're going to keep things dry. But this mostly cloudy sky, it is going to stay in place through the course of the night. But again, we are dry, but everybody is cold. Most of us dropping back into the mid to upper 20s. Joplin bottoms out around 27 with a light north breeze to start the day, but we'll get at least a southeast breeze back during the day. That'll help push temperatures near 40 by noon, and the high temp of 44 for downtown Joplin. Everybody else should make do with mainly mid 40s for your Tuesday afternoon. Looking down the road, once we get past this quick wave on Tuesday, partly sunny and back into the 50s, thankfully, for Wednesday and even Thursday. But here comes the next big system in Doug's pattern here. It can start us off with some rain showers late in the day on Thursday. Then, as the wave really kicks on out, we may see the system end as some maybe accumulating snow chances before we clear things out and eventually start to warm things back up by the time we go into Sunday and Monday of next week. So our next big system to watch Thursday and Friday, with rain Thursday and possibly ending as snow on Friday. Before we deal with that, though, at least we are going to trend warmer for the next few days. Dow 44 tomorrow, mid 50s on Wednesday, upper 50s on Thursday, then a little dip before we spring forward and head back near 60 on Sunday.
And love the idea of springing forward.
A lot of looking forward to that.
Thanks, Nick. Coming up, the projected cost of gasoline and other essentials. First, though, we recognize a local veteran. Corporal Jesse Bright joined the U.S. Marine Corps in 2002. His honors include a Global War on Terrorism medal, his hometown, Pittsburgh, and we are proud to salute Corporal Jesse Bright, a four-state hero. Topping today's Consumer Watch, the International Monetary Fund is warning that the Russia-Ukraine conflict will have a, quote, severe impact on the global economy. The financial watchdog cited rising oil and gas prices as one of the current consequences. The IMF says it's also weighing Ukraine's request for $1.4 billion in emergency aid. Gas prices are skyrocketing. The U.S. average per gallon topped $4 for the first time in more than a decade, fueled in part by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. A lot of experts warn prices will rise even further, not just for gas, but also for other essential goods. Carter Evans reports.
Drivers spent the weekend in long lines for cheaper gas in Southern California, where prices average more than $5 a gallon.
I had to get here early for gas because it's this crazy out there. It's over $6.
Nationally, gas prices are skyrocketing, averaging more than $4 a gallon. A typical driver is paying $16 more to fill up than this time last year. Russia's invasion of Ukraine putting pressure on global oil markets is partly to blame.
When can we see gas prices actually start to decline?
Realistically, it's going to be rough for the next 6 months.
UCLA senior economist Leo Feller says the war in Ukraine is impacting its exports and Russia's.
We're seeing big supply shocks, right? We're seeing oil prices go up. We're seeing wheat prices go up. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe, right? So there is a lot of concern that this is going to make an inflationary problem even worse.
Russia and Ukraine supplied nearly a third of the world's wheat last year, and since the invasion, exports have come to a standstill, meaning shoppers could see a rise in prices for items like cereal and bread and even meat, since some farmers rely on wheat to feed livestock.
How long is this going to last?
It's going to last as long as a war between Russia and Ukraine lasts, and until we're able to ramp up production in the U.S., the demand is there.
By the end of the week, we could see the national average for a gallon of gas shatter the all-time record high of $4.11 a gallon. But with oil prices close to $100 a barrel, U.S. producers will start ramping up production soon. It usually takes, though, about 6 months to get that oil into the pipeline. Carter Evans, CBS News, Los Angeles.
California's state average of $5.34 for a gallon of gas is the highest in the nation. That's according to AAA. Missouri has the lowest, $3.62 per gallon. We stopped by the Walmart market in Joplin this morning where they were selling gas for $3.39. PayPal suspended financial services in Russia citing its war against Ukraine. The online money payment transfer system said it felt it necessary to suspend payments inside Russia. PayPal said its other money transfer service, Xoom, was also halting operations there. The company said it would continue some customer disbursements for a period of time to comply with local laws. The move by PayPal follows other pullouts by financial services such as MasterCard and Visa, as well as major tech companies withdrawing from Russia over the war. 2 prominent credit and debit card companies are suspending operations inside Russia over its invasion of Ukraine. Both MasterCard and Visa say they'll cease allowing their credit and debit cards to be used inside Russia for financial transactions after a private video call with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. The 2 companies made their decision within minutes of each other. The cards won't be usable through Russian banks or in commercial dealings. Russian business transactions accounted for about 4% of revenue for both companies in 2021. A final check of the forecast next.
Salon service is provided by the Wild Side in .com.
Up next on the CBS Evening News, an update on the fastest growing refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. Then on KOAM News at 6, we're going to hear from a Southeast Kansas resident unhappy about the lights from those wind turbines as we look at legislation to address the issue. Plus, how a speech by Winston Churchill delivered in Missouri back in the 1940s resonates today. And how a heroic lunch lady in Missouri has saved a life for a second time. Stay with us. CBS Evening News and then KOAM News at 6. A rare Toyota sold for $2.5 million. That makes this 1967 Toyota Shelby 2000 GT the most valuable Japanese car ever sold at auction. A large part of its value comes from the fact that it was turned into a competitive race car by the legendary Carroll Shelby. There were only 351 Toyota 2000 GT models ever built between 1967 and 1971. One was featured in the James Bond movie You Only Live Twice, but this one is the rarest of the rare, the very first truly world-class Japanese sports car. Wow. It would be nice to own a toy like that, but you couldn't drive it. I don't think.
Well, if
because
you
the
did,
insurance rates would be so.
Well, if you did, it's a Toyota. It'll last you for a heck of a long time.
Well, this one apparently has.
Yeah.
But I think in this case, it is an investment and a showpiece more than a vehicle you want to use for transportation.
Yeah.
The weather.
We're going to keep cold tonight, but we'll bounce back into the mid-40s tomorrow, staying dry, 55 Wednesday. Then the next system of Doug's pattern comes in for Thursday and Friday. You'll have a fresh look at the forecast at 6.
Thanks for joining us. We will see you right back here at 6. Let's make it a great evening.